escape from Tarkov has been in a pretty strange state the last couple of years. A community divided in where they want developers to take the game. My name is Jezzy, and I just want to share with you some of my thoughts on what I truly believe will make EFT a richer, more hardcore, more immersive and satisfying experience overall. In this video, I want to cover 4 topics, and in my opinion, these aren't changes that require a huge amount of dev work. They would mostly require some rebalancing across the board. The 4 things I want to talk about today are suppressors, boss spawns, safe containers, and the flea market. So, let's get into it. Suppressors in Tarkov play a huge role. As you move a few weeks into the wipe, you get yourself the flea market unlocked, and from that point onwards, it's fairly rare you ever run a weapon without one. I mean, really, there's no downside to using one. The only con is a hit to ergonomics, but the huge benefit of being incredibly silent while firing in raid. I want you all to cast your minds back to the first week or so of each wipe. Just remember how alive the raid feels. Hearing fights going down all over the place, panicked AK fire as people are getting into PvP or running into a boss or something. And then a few weeks later, every raid just sounds so quiet. Just hearing the odd scav return fire, a grenade. Every now and then you might hear a ricochet or a bullet impact on a nearby building. In my opinion, BSG really need to tune the suppressors audio wise. If you didn't know, in Tarkov, exactly 100 meters away, suppressed shots are now no longer heard from the muzzle. The only audio you'll hear is the crack of the bullet or the bullet impacts themselves. Both from a realism perspective and from a game balance point of view, it makes so much more sense to have suppressed muzzles making considerably more noise, especially from rifles and larger supersonic calibers. We need to benefit from our choices. Make subsonic rounds mean something. Give smaller calibers that much needed buff that they need. As a primarily solo player, I want to be rewarded from my choices. To actively take weapons and ammunition that allows me to be more silent going through my raids. However, I pay the price when it comes to penetration and damage performance of my bullets, and vice versa. If a player wants to run the largest caliber with the highest pen ammo, that should have its downside of not being anywhere near as silent as what's in the game at the moment. Just like in real life, you can be a good few hundred meters out. If a rifle caliber is firing supersonic rounds, you hear those shots. Give us a feeling of raids being alive again. Throughout the wipe cycle, give us the chaotic immersion of being in an active combat area and just make the game feel more enjoyable while rewarding your choices. Alright, next up, this is a bit of a quick one as there's loads of talk at the moment between creators and on Twitter. Everyone's screaming and shouting to BSG to up the spawns faster throughout the wipe. My take on it is that spawns for bosses should be 50% or more. I think players should really know which areas are the boss's hunting grounds. They should be there more often than not. I know many of the concern of people farming the bosses, it'd be a bit too OP to get their gear and ammo, which is why I think they shouldn't scale the spawn rate, but they should scale the boss's gear instead. Now we have the armor plate system in, their armor could easily be reduced earlier in the wipe, paired with banned ammo. Take those level 5, 6 plates and reduce them to level 3 and 4. I just feel like slowing down progression by making people run in and out of maps just to finally get a boss spawn is just poor design and can be done better. Let's take Killer for example. You could easily make it the first couple weeks of the wipe. Why not reduce his plates from level 5 to level 3 or 4 plates? Make his ammunition worse so you can't farm it and you're going to have a better time fighting him at the beginning of the wipe. Maybe take off his faceplate from his helmet. I just feel like a lot of better things than just changing the spawn rate could be done with the bosses. Okay, next up, this is a big one. Safe containers. In my opinion, they have been way too strong over the last few years. and I truly believe they destroy a lot of enjoyment and intensity out from the game. I believe safe containers should be purely for bringing extra things into a raid and not putting things from a raid into your container. I mean, take a look at this. Look how much loot you can store in a safe container. With the addition of injector cases, dog tag cases, sick cases, and docs cases, the amount of things that you can store in your container is absolutely mental. An argument I've heard over the years is, oh, at least when you die to a cheater, you get to take something out. Or that without containers, people that loot something valuable would then head straight to extract and leave raids feeling empty. Now, I do think that might be the case at first. People will have to learn to deal with that anxiety and intensity of having value on them. But over time, they'll get used to it. But right now in Tarkov, 90% of the time, especially on maps like Streets and Lighthouse, I'm more excited to go loot a player scav than I am a PMC. Purely because I know that PMC has shoved all the goodies straight into their container. I know for sure, from my perspective, keeping the loot on the map until somebody actually extracts with it will do nothing but good things for the game. Would it sting when you get popped by a cheater? Absolutely. But the game shouldn't be balanced around cheaters. That's absurd. Like we've already seen with RM team changes, slowly being walked back now. But the intensity of having loads of good loot on you, the feeling of dropping a PMC in the open, and now having to risk looting that player, because they might have a LEDX, they might have a GPU or a Bitcoin in their bag, not in their container. Even dog tags. If that person that you then loot has 3 dog tags in their bag because they can't put it in the container, you then have a story to uncover, where they've been throughout that raid and who they've been in a fight with. What happened out of your view? Man, I really feel like the game would come alive again. I think it would be an adjustment for people, but having played recent wipes without a container in the beginning, you genuinely get used to that feeling after a few raids, and boy does it feel satisfying with every extract. Alright, and finally, this is another big one. The flea market. I feel like not a single day goes by where I don't see somebody advocating for the removal of the flea market, and I do see their point. However, I think the flea market deserves a place in the game. It's the one thing that makes Tarkov feel like it has a collective community and economy. It's the only thing that connects you to the rest of the player base when you're not in a raid. But the flea market in its current form, in my opinion, takes so much potential out of what it could be. What I would love to see is the flea become a barter-only flea. So I mean completely remove the use of rubles within the flea market. Make it so you can only list things up for sale for the price of other items. Right now, it feels like everyone's only objective in Tarkov. Once they've got their initial tasks out of the way, they've got their initial objectives, they've got max traders or whatever, their only objective in Tarkov is to gain as many rubles as possible. And in my opinion, that's so stale and boring. Why not take the value out of rubles and put them into the actual items we are looting within the raid? Rather than seeing an item and thinking, that's 20k rubles, you'll then think, oh cool, I can use this item to buy a suppressor I want for my AK. Because that's what would happen over time, right? The community would build their own economy based around items. We would slowly start accommodating the mindset. For the example, corrugated hoses is the currency used to buy weapon scopes and stuff like that. It'll really make looting a deeper experience than just seeing items as either for a task or as rubles. Pair this with the container changes I've mentioned earlier, and I truly think BSG could transform the feeling of being in a raid on Tarkov. That's all for today. Thank you, random stranger, for taking the time out of your day to listen to my potentially washed opinions. If you do think they are terrible, you agree, or neither, please let me know down in the comments. Let's maybe drum up some healthy conversations. And maybe one day, a dev might look at this and take these ideas into consideration. Thank you for your time, and whatever you get up to, have a great rest of your day.